What's going on, guys? Right, Mommy Teacher in the house, and I am here with another draft breakdown for you for the ADL. Your Royal Board for Bummies are back for another 1 week speed tournament. Obviously, last week we crashed out early in Little Cup, which is a little bit unfortunate, so we're looking to redeem ourselves this time round with some Monotype. I seem to be playing an awful lot of Monotype recently. The ADL's a Monotype draft league. Obviously, the Pocket Monsters tournament, I've got a Mono Fairy team. So now we're doing a 1 week speed league of Monotype. I must be getting good at it at this point. But nah, honestly, this was a very, very interesting draft for me. There was a lot of things that happened that I didn't really expect. So, for a little bit of context, for those who are not familiar, we were actually 6th pick out of 8 in the draft. So, I was not planning on getting a top tier type at all. Currently in Generation 8, the big 4 kind of Monotype teams are Water, Fairy, Dragon, and Steel. They are the big 4, if you like. Now, Water was picked, but the other 3 all made it down to me. So, I actually had a pretty tough choice as to which one I pick. Obviously, everyone would have expected me to pick Fairy because it's Rabombi and it's my favorite type. But I didn't do that. So I had a look at the draft, and I'll even just look at the doc to make sure I get this right. Burger picked Water, Exo picked Ghost, Skinny picked Poison, and Arvid picked Grass, and King Farfetch picked Ice before me. Now, at this point, that means that nobody drafted any answers, specifically type matchup-wise, for Steel type. So, my team is Steel, basically. It's as simple as that. Fighting wasn't picked, Ground wasn't picked, Fire wasn't picked, and even after me, Annalorum picked Fairy, and Critic picked Psychic, both of which are actually not very good against Steel, so they actually picked themselves into some awkward matchups. So, with that in mind, all I did with this draft essentially was pick the picks that were contested first and then move on. But I'm not going to do this in pick order, I'm just going to go down the tier list because most of my picks were completely uncontested. So we'll talk about the contested ones as we go through. So, first pick of the draft, as you can probably guess by the stats on the screen, is going to be Aegislash. I've never actually used Aegislash in draft at all. Obviously, because prior to this gen it was banned because it was too bulky and really annoying to deal with. This time around, obviously with the King Shield nerf and the base stat drop nerf, it's actually draftable. It's actually a really interesting Pokemon. Can be physical, can be special, can run mixed, can be a toxic staller. It can actually do quite a lot of things. Having a specially offensive Steel type is actually kind of important in mono drafts. Steel is primarily a physical typing. So to have something that can have a monstrous special attack stat in its Blade form, in Blade form of course the defense and special defense are swapped into the attack stats. The speed still stays the same though, it's still base 60 speed, so just remember that as we talk. Speed tier will be very important, and we'll talk about that as we go further down the draft. But yeah, Aegislash was a very, very strong centerpiece for this team. It was also a takeaway from Exo. Exo wasn't planning on drafting Aegislash anyway, but it does limit his options for the S tier pick because there was only 3 ghost types, Aegislash, Dragapult, and Gengar. Gengar was actually picked by Skinny Biscuit, so it basically left him with no option but to take Dragapult, which was fine anyway. He wanted Dragapult as it turned out anyway, but it's just the way the game goes. Sometimes you've got to snipe your opponents. But yeah, either way, that's how it goes. So, into our A tier picks then. These were picks I actually grabbed late in the draft because I had no competition for them. The first one is Bishop. Now, Bishop is fantastic against a lot of the teams we have. It obviously matches up very well into Exo, who I happen to play week 1 with the Ghost type team. Obviously, Swords Dance, Knockoff, Sucker Punch. Pretty much ruins his entire team. There's not really too many answers he's got for it. His best answer for that is like Sableye, and Sableye doesn't really appreciate a couple of other members of my team, so not a huge deal for me, but nonetheless, gotta watch out for the Will-O-Wisp burns and stuff like that, because that will really hurt Bishop's offensive presence. But again, relatively slow Pokemon, and you'll notice why when we get 3 picks time. But yeah, I really like Bishop as a Pokemon. I think it's got a lot to offer in terms of its power. Obviously, it's got some okay physical bulk as well, which can be nice, but primarily we're looking at its offensive presence. And my other A tier is an old fan favorite, but an old friend of mine, and that is Lucario. I really love this Pokemon. I think it's a very, very good Pokemon. Decent enough speed tier in Monotype in this generation. It's not too bad. Obviously, with its good attack and special attack stat, I can run it mixed. I can be physical, can be special. Pretty much entirely dependent on what I need. For however I wish to play this game. Obviously, it's great out of Trick Room and in Trick Room, which Trick Room will feature a fair bit in this team shortly. But yeah, Lucario, very, very good Pokemon in Monotype. Still fighting, actually has a pretty solid typing. Does match up well against, say, King Farfetch'd, who's got a nice team if I get to it, and stuff like that. Can actually match up pretty well into other things. It's got a wide move pool as well, so I can actually cover into a hell of a lot of people with just Lucario, so hopefully we can put that to good use in this particular tournament. Now, the next pick is a contested pick of mine, but it was a pick that I was surprised I managed to get, which was Silvally. Now, obviously, the rules on this, because it's a Monotype, I have to use Silvally Steel. I can't use anything else. But nonetheless, Silvally actually has decent presence. Obviously, its very well-rounded stats help it out a lot. Very good defogger, gets a lot of utility options and stuff like that. Does get Parting Shot, does get U-Turn as well. Multi-attack with Steel is actually pretty strong. It's a very, very hard-hitting move. There's not really a lot of things that really appreciate it. So, very, very solid Pokemon. Definitely a bit more utility for the team. Obviously, we've got quite a lot of offensive presence with our top tier picks, so having that utility to support it is always nice to have. Next pick was also a contested pick, but not really per se, and that is going to be Bronzong, our primary Trick Room setter, of course, our Bishop enabler, if you like. It'll also enable our next pick as well, which we'll get onto. Really, really bulky, does get Cosmic Power as well, does get a lot of support. Cammy, a very interesting body press user. Iron Defense as body press. Off that 116 base defense is actually very, very solid. Does actually hit meaningfully damage. You can definitely run like a Curse set, have Gyro Ball for stab as well, things like that. Yeah, definitely could be very, very threatening. I think we got a lot of options with this little guy. Really excited to use it. I've used Bronzong a couple of times in the past on Trick Room teams. I actually really enjoy using Bronzong. So it's nice to be able to pick this up. Now, at the time of drafting this, the reason why I say it's not really contested is Critic actually first picked Jirachi, so he didn't really need another Steel Psychic type, but nonetheless, you know, I had to make sure I get it because it was a possibility that he would snipe me with it, which he didn't, so I'm pretty grateful for. But yeah, Bronzong definitely adds a lot of utility to the team. A lot of natural bulk that the team desperately needs to work with the offensive presence that we have. Next up is going to be probably our biggest Trick Room abuser on the team, and that is going to be Escavalier. Escavalier was probably a surprise pick to many. I think a lot of people would have expected me to pick up Durant, as it was actually in the same tier. But Escavalier offers additional bulk, which is nice. It's got really, really good stabs, does get knockoff as well for good utility. And in Trick Room, this thing can actually excel. Does get body press as well, so that's something else we can focus on. I could be team body press again. I did that in a few times in a GPL. But I really, really like this Pokemon. I think it's got a very good role in this team. Definitely offers us some great bulk. I can run this thing defensively, or I can run this like banded offense and be perfectly happy with that. So yeah, we do hit pretty hard with this little guy. It's got a monstrous attack stat at 135 base, which is very, very high. So it gives us a good presence. Definitely something we can work with, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if I can make this little guy work, because I've never actually drafted it before. I've used it on ladder in lower tiers, and it's definitely a lot of fun to use. Alright, next up is actually going to be somebody I had on a previous Monotype team that I've been in, and that is going to be a Alolan Dugtrio. Dugtrio give us a very fast threat. 110 base speed is pretty fast for this metagame. We have a generally very slow average metagame, so having a 110 base speed mon that can also get Sucker Punch for priority does hit really hard with things like the Earthquake and the Iron Head. Really, really strong stabs to have off that 100 attack stat. Not the best bulk in the world, but that's fine. This thing's job is to come in and break things. It's a very, very strong wall breaker. Tangling Hair is also a nice ability because it can actually slow down your opponents down, which might make it a little bit easier for mons like Lucario and Aegislash that are good carries but don't have the best speed tiers to work with. It will definitely give us a little bit of utility to function pretty nicely. It does also get Stealth Rock if I choose to use it, but like a lot of this team gets access to rocks. Bronzong of course has it as well. Probably not likely to use it, but we'll see. depending on who we end up facing if we progress through round 1. Next up on the team is going to be a mon that Exo is actually familiar with. He's used this in a draft himself recently, and that's actually Berserker. I actually really like this mon. I didn't like it at first, but having kind of seen what it can do with its Tough Claws ability and that very solid attack stat and decent natural physical bulk, it's actually really worth picking up. Obviously, it's a slow mon at base 50 speed, which can mean it can actually excel in Trick Room. I can run like a Brave set with max attack and max HP to make sure I live a lot of these hits and actually dish a lot of damage back. It does get a decent enough move pool. It does get knockoff as well, which can be very strong utility, especially coming off of Tough Claws as it is boosted. So, can be pretty scary. Definitely excited to try this one out. I'm not sure how good it will be for me, but it will definitely be a worthwhile little pickup if we can make it work. Next up on the team is something I actually was kind of surprised that I could pick up, and that's Togedemaru. Togedemaru is a really cool utility mon. Not the best mon in the world in terms of offensive presence, but does get things like Nuzzle, does get spikes, which can be very strong. Spiky Shield is a pretty nice little move for it. It was obviously, of course, its original signature move, kind of. Chestnut also got it, but that's a different banner. So this thing can be very interesting. Really strong. Zing Zap can actually do quite a lot of damage if left unchecked. So, well, we've got some decent enough utility with this little gun. But yeah, it's pretty much a utility mon. Does get Fake Out as well, I believe. So it's got some worthwhile things. Iron Barbs is a nice ability as well. I can switch it in on physical attackers and get some free chip, which can always be nice. And last but by no means least is the last contested pick I could have had but was left up for me, and that is Marwile. Obviously not mega, so it's not the best in the world, but it is decent enough. Does get Intimidate or Sheer Force, which are both nice abilities. And obviously that slow speed tier will help it in Trick Room as well. Actually can offer some decent stuff. Does get the Fangs coverage move. Does hit pretty hard with things like Play Rough and Ironhead. Does also get Sucker Punch. So it does get some decent moves and some options that I can work with. And obviously Intimidate, while it did get nerfed in this generation, it doesn't work on certain abilities anymore. There's not too many of them that it doesn't work on. So we are perfectly okay with running this. I can just switch this in, give it some utility, and then switch it back out again and save it just for Intimidate cause, which is always very nice to have. So that's going to be our team. As I alluded to earlier, our first match of the week is going to be against Exo. We seem to keep facing each other in the ADL, or we seem to be in the same side of the bracket all the time. But that's all part of the fun. Hope you guys are looking forward to that, but either way I'm going to get on out of here, so thank you so much for watching. My name is Rabombi Teacher, I'm your coach of the Royal Bomb of Rabombis. Stay safe, stay awesome, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.